Hi guys. Okay, so we're on session 2 now. Let's see how we get on. Okay, so we're going to see if we can do this. So make me a bit bigger. Okay, here we go. So we've got fractions, decimals, percentages, measures, and accuracy. So let's have a look at what we're going to do here. As before, you know, last week we had a few technical issues. Hopefully they've all been resolved for this week, but if anything doesn't work, stick something in the comments and I'll see what I can do to help. All right, so we've got fractions, decimals, percentages, and measures. Right. I'm going to see whether I can do something. Oh no, that's the wrong way around. Apologies, I've just managed to switch the sheet and my, okay, that way. All right, that's better. Okay, there we go. Technical issues, like I said. Right, so we've got the second bit of fractions, decimals, percentages, measures, and accuracy. So what's a fraction? So a fraction is where you have a numerator and you have a denominator. And you can switch between them and you get lots of questions like these. These are usually 1 or 2 markers at the start of the paper. They can be a little bit confusing, but you know, you're going to be absolutely fine on them. And we're going to go through the process and how to do them. They mainly come up in a non-calculator. So we're going to focus on the non-calculator to start with, and then we'll move and look at the calculator stuff. Okay. So mixed fractions are fractions where you have a whole number, so like 2.5, 3.5, and we have improper fractions. Now you might have learned this is top heavy. So the top is bigger than the bottom. And percentage, so if you have a look at a percentage sign, it essentially is a 1, which is that bit there, and 2 zeros, right? So it's 1 and 2 zeros, so it's out of 100. So we're either timesing by 100 or dividing by 100, depending on what we're trying to convert between. Okay, so let's have a look and let's start looking at some questions. And we'll also look at some rounding and so on as well. So we've got 3.98, and we're going to look at it as a fraction. So let's think about it. What is 0.98? So if you remember from very early on at school, you'd have done hundreds, tens, units, a decimal place, and then tenths, a hundredths, a thousandths, and so on. So what we do is we say, well, what is this? This is 3 whole ones. And then what do we have? This is going to be our tenths and a hundredths. So we go to the last one, which is a hundredths. So that's 98 over 100. Now, from your stuff you know about simplifying, you're going to go, okay, what goes into 98 and 100? And you may not be sure. So you're like, well, we should be able to half it because they're both even. So half of 98, so half of 90 is 45. Half of 8 is 4. You add them up, you get 49 over 50. Okay, so we're writing something as a fraction. So we've got a whole bit and the bit of the fraction. If we had to write it as a mixed number, so a top heavy fraction, we'd say, well, once we'd simplified it, 3 is times 50. So we're going to do 3 times 50, which gives us 150. Add the 49 to it, which is going to give you 199 all over 50. We've got right 0.93 as a percentage. So if we're going from a decimal to a percentage, we're timesing by 100. So when we times by 100, remember we move something 2 decimal places. So we're going to go move that. So 0.93 times 100 is going to give you 93%. Okay, we've got which is bigger, 0.76 or 4/5. Now we want them in the same form to be able to compare them. So I would either change them into decimals, or you change the 4/5, this 0.76 into a fraction. Decimals are easier because you can see the numbers. You can see the tenths and the hundredths and the thousandths. So let's take 4/5 and let's change it into a decimal. So we have 4/5. Now this one's actually quite easy because we're going to make it over 10 because we know that first amount is tenths. To go from 5 to 10, we times by 2. We're going to times the top by 2 and we'll get 8. So 4/5 is 0.8. Now we've got 0.76 and 0.8. And just to make it the same, we'll have 80. And all you're doing is you're comparing 76 and 80, and you're saying which one's bigger. So 80 is bigger, so that one is higher. Now we've got to round 7.987 to 2 significant figures. Be careful. It says significant figures, not decimal places. So you have to be really, really careful about what you're looking at. Significant figures is numbers. So we want 2 numbers, and then we look at what's after that. So that's 5 or bigger. So it's 8 because it's bigger than, it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so we add 1. When we add 1, that becomes 0 effectively, and we're going to get, but that 0 is still significant because we want 2 significant figures. So we've got 8.0. Round to 1 decimal place. Now these ones are easier. You take your decimal place and you go 1 along. Okay, so that's a 9 there. So again, we want to add 1. So that's going to give you, so if you were rounding 8.95 to 1 decimal place, you're essentially saying, well, what comes 9? I'm going to add 1. So that's going to become 10. Carry that over and we get 9.0. Round 3.08 to 2 significant figures. Again, 1, 2. Look at that third one. You get 3.1. So that's like doing it to 1 decimal place. So that's why you have to be very careful. Right. We want to go from kilometers to meters. Now, in an exam, if you ever get confused by these, you say to yourself, which one is bigger? Is the kilometers bigger or is the meters bigger? So you know you have less kilometers for more meters because meters are smaller, if you like. So if you're going to convert kilometers to meters, and the K, you see kilo, kilograms, kilometers, anything like that, your brain is just going to go 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. The K represents 1,000. So you're going to times this by 1,000. Now remember, when you times by 1,000, it's the same as moving it the amount of decimal places as there are zeros. So there are 3 zeros. So you're going to jump that 1, 2, 3, and you'll get 8905.4. And we've got what is 8.967 to the nearest 100th. So again, remember, we've got tens, units, a decimal place. These are tenths. These are hundredths. So the 100th bit, if you like, everything after that, you've got 67. So if you round that, closest to 70. So you get 8.97, and that's to the nearest 100th. Okay, now let's have a look at some exam questions. So now we're going from centimeters to meters, right? So if I want to change something from a centimeter to a meter, centimeters are smaller, so we're going to have less meters. So we've got to divide, and you've got the C there. Remember, the K gives you 1,000, the C is 100. So we're going to divide by 100. So if you imagine the decimal place is there, we're going to move it 2, and we get 3.65. Right, now we're going to go kilograms into grams again. More grams than kilograms. K, our brain goes 1,000. So we're going to jump it 3, 1, to give us 27, and 2 more, which will be 0. So 2,700 grams. Okay. Here we've got a little table where we're going to convert from fraction to decimal to percentage. Some of these you probably know, but let's think about how we go about doing it. If we've got the percentage, it's really easy. We divide that percentage by 100, so move the 2 decimal places, and it gives us the decimal. So we get 0.25. The next one, we have the decimal. To go to the percentage, we times by 100. So we're moving it 2, and we get 7%. Now, to go from a decimal or a percentage to a fraction, so I think a decimal is easier, we can see we've got 1 whole one, and then we've got 3/10. Now remember, we could write this also as top heavy, so 10 plus 3, so 13/10. Right, so we've got some signs here. We've got smaller than, so where the little bit, the tip of the arrow is, if you like, right, that's going to be the smaller number. Where it opens it out is your bigger number. So we've got 4.5 and 4.34. Now remember, if it's not the same number of digits, if this is just 5, add a 0 because it'll make it easier for you to see. Because then you're comparing 50 and 34. Which one is bigger? 50 is bigger. So the open mouth is towards the 50. Now here we've got 3/4 and 0.8. So we need them in the same form again. Let's put them into a decimal. Hopefully you know 3/4 is 0.75. If not, you can do 3 divided by 4. And then this is 80. So you're comparing 75 to 80. 75 is smaller. 3/5. Now remember, this is quite close to 10, so we can go straight to 10 by timesing by 2. So we get 0.6 and 0.6. Well, these therefore are equal. Right. Now we're going to round some things. We've got, by rounding each value to one significant figure, estimate the cost of 3.9 kilograms of apples at 87p per kilogram. Okay, so we want to round them. So we've got 3.9, so we just want to make that one number. So we're going to make that 4 kilograms. And instead of 87p, we're going to make that 90p, because that's the nearest whole number it's closest to. Right, so if every 1 kilogram we're saying is approximately 90p, how much will 4 be? So all we're doing is 90 times 4. So 9 fours, you know your trick with your fingers, you can put your 4th finger down, you get 36. So you get 360. And they want it in pounds, this is in pence. So that's £3.60, and that's your estimate, right? Because you've rounded one up, well, you've rounded them both up. Right, Kate is 5 feet 2 inches tall. Alice is 1.57 meters tall. Alice says she is taller than Kate. Use the conversion below to decide if Alice is correct. So this isn't a conversion you need to know. They've given it to you. So if they've got something like this, they will give it to you. So you've got to convert them both into the same thing. Now for this question, it was actually on a calculator paper, which is quite nice because the mental arithmetic here would have been a bit annoying. So we've got 5 feet and 2 inches. But let's imagine it wasn't on a calculator paper and work through this. So 1 foot equals 12 inches. So let's make everything into inches and then inches into meters. So 5 feet is going to be 12 times, so 5 feet is going to be 12 times 5. So 12 times 5 is going to give you 60 inches. And then you've got the extra 2. So in total, this is 62 inches. Now, 1 inch is 2.5 centimeters. So 62 inches must be 2.5 times 62. Now, when you multiply decimals, what you do is you pretend like the decimal isn't there to start with. So we're going to do 62 times by 25, right? So we've got 2 times 5 to give us 10, 6 times 5 to give us 30, plus the 1, so we get 31. And now because we move on, we put the 0 in. You may do long multiplication another way. Honestly, however you do it, you do you. 2 times 2 is 4, 6 times 2 is 12. As long as you get the right answer, it doesn't matter. And some of you might have brains that can do it, you know, straight away. So I've added them up. Now, what I need to do, if there's one number behind the decimal place in the question, then in my answer, there will be one number behind the decimal place. So that will be the same as 155 centimeters. Right, so now we have it in centimeters. How many meters is that? Which equals 1.55 meters. And so we'd say Alice is correct. And we have to write that conclusion statement to get that final mark. It's a bit annoying, but don't forget it because you won't necessarily get that mark. Right, so this is question 14 of an exam paper, which tells you it's quite far along. So it's going to be a bit tricky. It's your level 5 question. It's towards the end of the foundation paper. And it's what you should be doing, okay? It's what you should be able to get if those are the grades you're aiming for. So we've got Gavin, Harry, and Isabel each earn the same monthly salary. Each month, Gavin saves 28% of the salary and saves the rest. Harry spends 3/4 and saves the rest. And the amount of salary Isabel saves to the amount she spends is 3 to 7. So we've got a bit of ratio in there as well. Now they earn the same, so you can just make up a number. Now, because we put things in percentages, the easiest amount I'm going to choose is I'm going to say they earn £100. It doesn't matter that they probably, well, don't, because that's not a lot of money, but we can then work out how much, if it was 100, how much each person saves. So Gavin saves 28%. So straight away, we know he saves £28 because 28% of 100 is 28. Harry spends 3/4 of his salary and saves the rest. So that means he's saving 1/4. So if we have a whole one, we get rid of the 3/4, we're left with 1/4. How much is 1/4? Well, 1/4 is, what does a fraction mean? Divide by the bottom times by the top. So we're just doing 100 divided by 4, which is going to be halving it to give you 50, halving it again to give you 25. So Harry saves, if it was £100, £25. Ratios, which we will come back to and do a whole lot of stuff on ratios, is we're going to add those up. 3 plus 7 gives us 10 bits. So at that £100, each bit is £10. Now she saves the first amount. So she's having 3 of those bits. So she saves, Isabel saves £30. So you'd say Isabel saves the most of her salary. Okay, scroll up. Right, we're going to write these numbers in order of size. And we're going to start with the smallest number. So like I said, we want them to have the same amount of numbers after the decimal place because it's easier for us to compare. So if we have a look, these all have, this is 3, this is 3. So we're going to add a 0 there and a 0 there. And then it becomes easy because what you're comparing is 78, 780, 870, and 708. So if you look at that, which one's the smallest? Very clear. The first one is. The next one, which is smallest, would be 0.708 because 708, 0.78, and then 0.87 is the biggest. So when you've got decimals and you're wanting to compare them, just put a so it's the same amount of digits after the decimal place. And anywhere you've got a gap, you can add a 0. Okay. So again, this is a question 19. So we're getting towards the end of the paper here. So we've got 2 1/7 plus 1 1/4. So if we're going to work those out, they're like a mixture. Can you see? You've got some which are, you've got mixed numbers, essentially. So you've got an option. You can either convert it all into a top-heavy number or treat the numbers and the fractions separately. So let's do that to start with. We're going to do 2 plus 1, which is going to give us 3, which are the whole numbers. And then we're going to do 1/7 plus 1/4. Now you're going to make the denominator the same. The easiest way to do this is what I kind of call a butterfly method. So you can draw yourself a butterfly. 1 times 4, which gives you 4. 1 times 7, which gives you 7. So you're timesing the diagonals. 7 times 4, which gives you 28. Yeah, and then you're going to add the top two numbers. So 7 plus 4, which is 11. And you're going to get 11 over 28. So now we've got 3 and 11/28. Right, we've got a division. Okay, when we're dividing fractions, we have to write them as top-heavy fractions to start with, or yeah, so that's how we've got to improper fractions to start with. So remember, to make it into an improper fraction, we do 1 times 5, which is 5, add it to the 1. So we get 6 over 5 divided by 3/4. And then we kiss and flip. So we change the divide to a time sign, and we flip the 3/4 to make 4/3. And then we can cancel diagonally and up and down. Now, if you didn't see that you could just multiply across and do that later. But hopefully you can see the 6 and the 3 can cancel. That becomes 1, that becomes 2. So we get 2 times 4 on the top, because timesing is easy, which is 8, and 5 times 1, which is 5. We want it as a mixed number. So we've got 8/5. So we've got 1 whole one, which is 5 bits of 5. And how many are left? 6, 7, 8. So we've got 3/5 left. Okay. By all means, make sure as you're doing these, if you're watching this afterwards, you're pausing it, you're trying the question, you're trying it again later. I know I'm talking through it quite fast, but you can just pause this and come back to it whenever you need to. Right. To the nearest pound, John has £9. And to the nearest 50p, Ellie has £6.50. So we want to know what's the maximum amount of money that would still round to £9 if we were doing to the nearest pound. Okay. If I had £9.50, we would round that to £10, wouldn't we? So we need to go 1 less than that. So for John, it must be £9.49. And for Ellie, it's going to be £6. What's it going to be? So if she had £6.51, it still rounds to 50. So what is her maximum amount to the nearest 50p? So this is one, in the exam, there were a lot of students that didn't get this correct. So 650 is her, so if she went up 1, is it close? It's going to be closer to what? So how much is going to be closer? So let's think about this, because I'm going to write this out just so you can see. So we've got £6, 650, £7, 750. Okay. So if I said we had, let's take different amounts and see where it's going to round to. Okay. So if she had £6.49, well, that would round to 6. If she had exactly £6.50, we're here. £6.51 is still closer here. All the way to 53, 54, but the minute we get to 55, we're going to round there. So it's going to be £6.54. A lot of students found that difficult to think about. And if you do, write them out and just say, okay, what's the amount in between and what's it going to come to? And then we just add them up. So 949 plus 6.54. 9 plus 4 gives us 13. We get 10 and we get 16. So we've got £16 and 3 pence. Okay. A company sells, I'm just going to scroll too far, sorry. A company sells 3 houses. The prices are 185,000, 239,000, 136. The company earns 2% commission on each house. So it's getting 2% of each house. So let's take each one and say, how do we work out 2%? So 2% is 2 over 100, isn't it? Because everything percentage is out of 100. So that's the same as dividing by the bottom and multiplying by the top. So we're going to divide by 100 and multiply by 2. Dividing by 100 is going to get rid of the zeros, and then we're just doubling. Now, we could add it all up and work out 2%, and that might be easier. So it doesn't matter which way around you do it, but we can just add them all up without the zeros, because we're without 1 or 2 of the zeros. So divide by 100, divide by 100, divide by 100. So we get 1850, 2390, 1360. And then whatever the answer is, we can then double it. So we got 1850 plus 2390 plus 1360. So we get 0. We get 0 again, 8, 9, 10, 6, 2, 3, 16, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5,600. And then 2 times 2, because we're doubling it. So 56 times 2 gives you, so 50 times 2 gives you 100. 6 times 2 gives you 12. So we've got 112 and our 2 zeros. So altogether, the commission is 112,000. Oops, sorry. Right, how many minutes in 225 seconds? Okay, so this is a bit trickier, and I'm going to show you how to do these questions on your calculator if you do have it. If you do end up, if it isn't a calculator paper, because it does it for you. But if it's not, we know that there's 60 seconds in every minute. So how many 60s in 225? So if you can't sort of think about it too much, just think, well, it's not going to be that much. Let's think about it. So we're going to have 60. That's 160. Add 60 to 60, you're going to get 120. Right? Add 60 again, you're going to get 180. Right? And if you add 60 again, you're going to get more than 225, which you can see when you start to add it up, because you'll get 8 plus 6, you get 240. So we definitely know it's 3. So we can cross those out. And how many seconds are left? So if we do 225 minus 180, it's going to give you 45 seconds. So it's 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Now 45 is out of 60. So 45 divided by 60 is definitely more than a quarter, because you know a quarter is 15. So it's going to be 3/4. And you can cancel down to find that. Right, the length of a table is 110 centimeters to the nearest centimeter. Complete the error interval. So it's just saying, what could it have been rounded to either side? All you do is you say 1 centimeter and you split it, 0.5 and 0.5, right? So you're going to add 0.5 and you're going to minus 0.5. So you'll get 110.5, and then you're going to do 110 minus 0.5, which gives you 109.5. Okay, so I'm hoping anyone who's watched this or is watching it finds this useful. The notes will be attached underneath. There'll be another session tomorrow My brain's gone blank. I can't tell you what that is right now, but there'll be the next session tomorrow with the view of going through some exam papers as well once we've completed all the sessions. I'll try do a few through the week. If you're watching this later on and not during sort of the resit time, the idea of this was to try split this in the weeks upcoming to the resit exam in November. It's not really a resit. No one took actual exams. They just did hundreds and thousands of annoying assessments. But that's the view of this. So hopefully that's been useful for you. And yeah, make sure you subscribe, leave any comments, and I shall make sure the worksheet is attached to the recording of this video. I have some wonderful helpers who help me do that and put the thumbnails up. So that will be there by the end of today. If you need it any quicker and are working through it today, send me a DM on Instagram and I will just send you a link I'll send you a link with the, sorry, I can't get the word, the PDF on it, but it should be also on Google Classroom. If it's not, I'll make sure it's on there tonight. Okay, have a good day and hope everyone stays well.